Feeling comfortable?
Yeah.
You got your water accessible if you
good.
need it? Yeah, usually I end up not hydrating too much. Yeah, if you got a table here, you got one over here.
There you go.
Wherever you need it.
Cool.
Hunter, thanks for coming out to the Founders Lounge. We've got a little special edition. Usually Alex is with us, but he's in his office today. So we bring this to you guys. Yellow Nerd's his company. He's a marketing company, does a lot of automations, and we've known each other now for a few years.
Yep.
So Headshot Professional. That brings the podcast. But what we're here is to chat more about your story. I know we met a few years ago, and you're in a very high-end luxury market for construction.
Yes.
And I think it's just awesome what you've been able to do in just a matter of a few years. And we were also saying, and then you're under 30 still.
Yes.
I mean, it blows my mind. I'm 45. But hey, listen, guys, Hunter is under 30, doing multi-million-dollar construction projects in some of the highest-end communities in DFW. He's a true rock star, and the biggest thing is the size of your heart. I mean, you really care about your clients and people, and I think it's one of the biggest differences of what brings you to this. So for people out there, if they think they can't do it, share a little bit about your story, about all the things that made this impossible and how you kind of defeated the odds.
I think, ultimately that's what it comes down to is I always knew I was going to be a business owner. This is the second business that I've been successfully running for about 4 years now. The first business that I ran, I actually started freshly out of high school. I didn't graduate. It was just one of those things. I just really wasn't focused on college. I just kind of knew that ever since I was young, I always knew that I was going to kind of be the pioneer. And it's a very cliche thing to say, but there was always a way that my mind worked and kind of unraveled things, that I was always interested in how things worked. I was always intrigued to kind of like redefine a standard, ever since I was young, there was always things that, I noticed about myself that was very unique. So, every Saturday, my dad kind of enforced a rule in our house that we would clean our spaces. We would clean the mirrors, clean the vanities, vacuum. Like ever since we were young, that was kind of one of the things we would do. I have 2 siblings, so, it was a way for, my dad to kind of lighten the load on my mom. And so as he kind of instilled those values in us to take care of our space, to ultimately protect our mother's time so she's not on her hands and knees the whole week, keeping the house clean, I learned that, I wasn't content until I pulled literally every piece of furniture out of my room. My bed would come out of my room, my shelves, my desk. I would literally pull things to like the center of the room to actually vacuum up and underneath things. I wouldn't just, use the glass cleaner for the desk surface. I do underneath it. I was very particular in how I would accomplish
just
certain
super
things.
Detail oriented,
Super
even beyond
detail oriented.
Military precision.
Oh yeah. It was more of like, for me, the gratification came when I would lay down in bed that night and I knew that like literally every surface of that room was clean.
I didn't
So
that
was like very quirky. I kind of knew that was very quirky. My siblings would do kind of the bare minimum. They wanted to, they were focused on other things like getting out and being kids and playing and stuff. And I would almost take all day to do my room. And so that's kind of when I learned a lot about myself and maybe where it was more of a foreshadowing of what kind of person I would grow up to be. And so I think it was a combination of situations like that and my dad having a development business in Southern California that I kind of was exposed to at a young age. So I was always in my dad's shadow, always loved being with him. He'd take me out of school early on Friday, would go see the job sites. I'd talk to the trades, just being the builder's kid and, kind of always interested in what was next and the schedule and the chronological order and the problems that, he had faced. And I was 7 years old. So the problems to a 7-year-old, like picking up cans in the gutter was like my thing. That was what I was focused on. So I think it was kind of the combination of those two things that I knew, like, as I had grown and matured, and we moved here, I learned, like, look, college is just not a requirement for what I wanted to do. I was very analytical. I had the engineer's mind. I wanted to know how things worked. And so as I kind of got out into the professional world, I started my own business, put together an investor prospectus at 17 years old, sat down with a Chamber of Commerce down in Austin, learned all this from my dad, didn't know what to do necessarily. And it wasn't like, I wouldn't go to him and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And he would just kind of handle it. And all of the connections that he had, I piggybacked off of. When we moved to Texas, he didn't move with his development business. He, had to file bankruptcy in 2008, and
during the crisis.
Yeah, it was. It was
I
terrible.
owned 40 rental properties during that time.
Yeah, he had 40 lots and a bank loan that was sizable, and it was appraised at a certain value on Monday, and then by Wednesday the bank was calling asking him to pay that. It was brutal. So
they called everything boom, just shut the market
100%, and you could never mentally be prepared for something like that. So we actually kind of fled to Texas because it was one of the few economies that had a predictable downfall, and so there was a lot of stability in that. However, it bit my dad so hard, he just was so unattracted to the idea of being a builder anymore. And so he started an insurance brokerage, him and my mom. He did commercial lines, my mom did private lines, and then that's kind of the business that they started. So when we moved here, there was no realtors, no trades, no, Chamber of Commerce presidencies that builders just kind of meet as they get into the community and start building. There was none of that. So when I started, it was from scratch. I used a lot of his experience, that was now a decade old, because when we moved here, I was, young. And so a lot of the building techniques and the styles from California didn't really translate to Texas.
You had different building codes.
Oh, yeah. And it was
a completely different market. The style of homes even being built has been changed for the last 20 years.
Different. Just the way that the engineers' involvement in California is night and day different, which is a problem in Texas. And it's a pain point for the consumers. And I wish, kind of being a good general contractor, that there was more regulation as it pertained to some of these projects. But I digress. So ultimately, I had to learn what kind of market I wanted to get involved in, and the trades, and building the relationships with that. So I was learning how to be a professional while also honing in my skills as a builder too. I didn't know what kind of builder, I didn't know what kind of person I wanted to be. Was I going to be the hard ass builder that, made everyone wince when I kind of came and walked the job, but built a really good house and wasn't the most relationship oriented person, but you can kind of count on me to be vigilant in the building technique. And that's kind of the way my mind worked anyway. So getting back to the Saturday cleaning, I would judge my siblings for not doing it the way I was doing it, because I knew by the book my way was the best way you could possibly clean a room, And so was I going to judge other people around me for not doing it the way I was doing it? Or was I going to be relationship oriented, relatable, charismatic, and understanding that, hey, everyone's kind of got their own unique walk? And how is that, so how do you do that, right? How do you grow as an adult in a world where everything is so, everyone's so hyper focused on kind of being the same person, but, also claim to be individualistic? And then also everything's online, so if you make a mistake, it's everywhere. Everyone says that they're rooting for you, and they're kind of not, because the first mistake you made it goes on your Google reviews. So there was a lot of character development on top of business development, and throughout those years I learned a lot of what to say, what not to say, how to be professional in the eyes of my framer and my tile guy, keep them on the job, keep them happy, keep them fed, but also, tote the line of, look, this is an investment. I've got to protect my family. And at that point, my future family. Didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. And so it was a lot of that. It was more about, how to put the book down and walk the walk very candidly, and learn things from everyone around me, because everyone's got something to teach. There's always something you can learn from, even people that you don't totally respect. I mean, everyone's got a unique walk, and so who am I to say, I don't want to take anything from you as a person, because I just don't respect you. There's always something that can be, you can learn from in any engagement. And so,
yeah. And I feel like today's culture too, one thing that's sort of shifted now is there's no really defined good and bad anymore. Everything's kind of
right.
we all are sinners, you know what I mean? We all have a dark side in some ways. None of us are perfect, we all have faults. But at the same time, though, even with culture now, it's more about being top of mind. Whoever can be, who can talk the talk also sometimes, maybe, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Because I deal with also a lot of roofing companies and things, and there's so many things that people do. There's a few companies that do things ethically and by the book, and then there's a bunch of them that don't.
Yeah.
And then in Texas, the market is so unregulated on some areas that it just becomes this a giant pool of, kind of the survival of the fittest or the hungriest, I don't know. And then they prey on people's naivety, and they don't know. I mean, now you can Google things, you can ask it a chat GPT for some tips and ideas, but if you don't even know what questions to ask, a lot of times you come unprepared. Somebody can come in, So for you, you've got this unique characteristic and personalities that kind of brought together a perfect storm of detail-oriented, getting things done. You've learned how to really communicate with people, from your subcontractors to your clients, and being able to you've got to almost be a mediator in a lot of ways, because you're bringing together
time.
people that don't speak the same language.
Totally.
I think that's the biggest thing about managing projects is you're really coming from two different languages and trying to meet in the middle and achieve the project. I think that's a big part that people don't realize as a general contractor, or even some of these projects that you're working on.
Most people don't think they think that their language is the only legitimate language. And it kind of comes down to a respect thing. So the general contractor has to be able to articulate himself to multiple different personality types without sounding like he's selling a bunch of fluff. And what I've learned is, the experience that the general contractor has had will kind of hone that skill in. The perspective is ultimately probably the most powerful characteristic that a builder can have, and I tell my clients this a lot, read my face. Do I look upset? Do I look scared? Is this something that I'm worried about? And I usually will bring that up when I'm getting a phone call at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I will take the call and step outside for a minute, and it's, oh my God, it's going to rain tomorrow. And I'm like, it's okay. This is part of it. I'm not worried about it. Read my face. If I'm concerned about it, it's okay to be concerned. If I'm not concerned about it, here are the reasons why I'm not concerned about it. I'm not going to sell you a bunch of crap as to why I'm not concerned about it, because, to kind of mask the internal anxiety that I feel like, oh crap, it's going to rain tomorrow. I didn't plan on that. You always have to you have to kind of put yourself in the mind of a homeowner and think of the things that they're going to be concerned about. And it's not very hard to predict what they're going to be upset about. It's trash. It's what the front yard looks like. It's the health of their grass. It's the windows being shut and the front door being locked, at the end of the job, the gate being closed. Smells, or what, right? I walked into the house and it smelled like smoke or whatever. And if you let that stuff kind of get to you, it can affect your ability to mitigate the stress and anxiety of just, that's accrued when you just run jobs. It's a very stressful position to be in when you're a general contractor. You're always having to think on your toes. And that's not to say that the schedule isn't important and, being methodical isn't important, but when you're doing remodels, especially for people that usually run businesses and have employees that, they're barking orders out all day, there's a relationship dynamic that, no other part of the world can teach you besides just being in that situation with them. And what I've learned is, I used to get kind of frustrated about some of these questions or concerns that, these homeowners would bring up, because it was kind of like a slight at my ability. Like, you don't trust me, and I'm bothered by that. But what I've learned through the years is that it has nothing to do with that. And it's more about these people have a compass that they've followed and has led to their success for their entire life. Everyone's got a story, right? Mine is, I took the untraditional route. It wasn't something that, it was very difficult. It felt like I was pushing rope for the last, just over a decade in my professional life, a lot longer in my personal life. But, and what I've learned from that is that I am ultimately I take my word for it more than I would take yours. So if I don't believe in what you're saying, like, I'm going to listen to that internal voice is louder than what you're telling me. And so how do I kind of talk to that internal voice of theirs and, help them rest easy, knowing that what I'm telling them is not just a bunch of crap, So that's like the biggest thing, is how do I sell to them this level of security and understanding that, look, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but that I'm going to come to you. That it is the relationship. The relationship is professional, but I'm also not going to be so uptight about it that I'm not willing to adjust my plan of action, or I'm going to throw the contract in your face. Like, this is just as much of a relationship as it is just being your neighbor, because I'm working in your home. There's no other professional engagement that these people go through where they're like in their house. You have a landscaper, you've got cleaners that come into your house. And so there's like, you're welcoming them into your home, your cave, your, sanctuary. But when I'm like hired to come in and destroy it.
Yeah, you're doing a true renovation.
Oh, true renovation.
Yeah, ripping things out.
Everything. There's a lot of emotional sentiment that goes along with this, right? A lot of the times their home equity is great, and so it's like their house that they've raised their kids in, and so everything is important to them. Everything, because they cannot imagine a situation where this doesn't turn out good. But they've heard so many horror stories of, like, from their friends or blogs or the internet or whatever, that like general contractors are out to get you, and they're just going to suck all the money out of your wallet, and don't believe any of them, and do your homework and get, find an attorney before you even work with these guys. I've heard all of these stories, and it's true. Like, there's so many people out there that are out to get you, but it's guys like me that I think can kind of come in and, like, smooth the waters and say, look, I am a builder, but I also understand that this is your home. And so I have a business model that I'm going to sell to you, but you're also going to sell to me the way you want this to look like. And if you're going to call me 6 times a week just to talk about whatever you want, like, who am I to be like, stop calling me? There's so many builders out there that just, the homeowners are calling me, and it's driving me up a wall. Why? If you can understand, like, that person is going to absorb more of your time, then under the justification of the time is money, then throw an extra point or two on your margin, and then just stop, like, bitching about it. Just stop. That's my MO. It's all about, put yourself in the shoes of the homeowner. And I just don't understand how things can go wrong, in terms of the relationship, right?
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, people may not know. So I grew up doing construction work. I grew up doing vinyl siding. I even had a hurricane shutter and window replacement business at one point in my life. And in the construction business, there's always people that say, can't see it from my house. Mm-hmm. That's like a really common motto, which is horrible. But it's for subcontractors to even contractors. Can't see it from my house. They'll joke around about it. You know what I mean? So there's a level of professionalism that isn't always met. So my father always had a really good example of just maybe over delivering. There's a level of delivering that's profitable, and there's a level of over delivering. But he was on the side of just over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it done right. So I kind of learned that growing up, but then I saw the other side of tons of people, and it's And it's tough though, because as a GC, you're not doing all the work yourself. You're having to find subcontractors you can trust that actually want to do things the way you want to do it. They're just not trying to get it done as fast as possible. So let's go into it for a minute here. You've been really building this business. For other entrepreneurs out there that are younger, that service-based businesses, I feel like are some of the safest business right now, especially with the threat of AI and things like that. For people out there, are there a couple of tips that you could give someone that's wanting to go out there and throw their own shingle up and start to build a business, regardless if it's home services or not, but like want to get out there and get started? Like, what are a couple things that really helped you build this foundation, to be able to get out and build these relationships, just anything that kind of comes top of mind? Like,
for me, looking back on my first couple years in the industry, in running this business, I was so stressed about margins. I was so stressed about how to make, the 20% that I had convinced myself I would make, that it kind of became like a pain point when I would have to communicate certain things to clients that maybe, I didn't articulate appropriately on the front end, right? So, for example, if I put an estimate together and as the job progressed, there was an item that was missed and it costs a couple $1,000s. Sometimes it becomes easier to make that sell when you put yourself in the homeowner's position and say, look, I have hired this guy to find all of these things, and all of the things that I need to pay for, I need to know now before the job gets going so that I can swallow that pill and know that I'm working with a guy that's organized and understands, to a pretty good extent what it is I'm asking to do and how to accomplish that. And so when things get missed, it's, from a consumer side, hard to hear from a professional like, hey, I missed this and it's your responsibility. So what I would say to young entrepreneurs is, look, the margin is important, but the relationship is the most important out of the entire engagement. I understand you've got to feed your family. Trust me, I'm in that boat. I've been in that boat. I understand the importance of making as much money as you can, but not at the expense of the relationship. Because I promise you, if you, let's just say in that scenario, say, hey, I just want to let you know I missed this. It is important to me to do the right thing. And from a consumer's perspective, I feel like this is something that you are paying me to have caught. And because I didn't, it's my responsibility to pay for it. But I just want to let you know. I want to highlight that so that so that I consistently remind you who you are working with. It's not, hey, I'm the best man ever, make sure you tell all your friends. No one wants to hear, a pompous, attitude about that. But you can appropriately sell yourself to normal people as a normal person sounds. And so I think highlighting that as an opportunity to build trust. Don't just focus on this one job. That situation right there is so rare, especially from people like me, that I promise you, these people will talk. They go golfing with people. They have kids in school. They talk to moms. They go to soccer practice on Saturday. Whatever it is, I promise you, that situation will multiply your business more than making the 20% and reinvesting that into the whatever, buying a flip, buying a lot to build a spec, growing your business the way you think you should grow your business versus ultimately protecting that relationship and then letting that compound over time. I'm in my position, I'm doing work for people for the top, I'd say 0.1% of, people because of that right there. That demographic is so tired of being sold everything. We live in such a capitalistic environment that everything's an upcharge. I mean, literally everything.
I've got friends. I'm not from here, same as you, and I've been able to build some relationships here. And I have some friends that live in certain communities that when they make a call, it doesn't matter if it's a painter or a plumber, if they let them know where they live, it's an automatic 50% or 100%
Right.
bump in price.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I've got one particular friend of mine. You know, they're doing some work. They just finished renovating their whole house. They have some little things they're trying to do, and if they know their address, it's automatically
100%.
which
It's called the South Lake tax here.
well, it's over in the Dallas area,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Yeah.
they have a thing where they automatically just bump up the price, which is
Right.
kind of wild to me. I mean, we're pretty flat price. I mean, we're pretty standard on our stuff, what we do, but
I think that's the biggest thing is, number one, don't be that kind of person that's like, oh, you're calling me from Highland Park, I can make a lot of money off of you, because those people are so intelligent. They're so privy to that model. They're not, this is not their first rodeo. So, to kind of create an analogy, when you go on vacation to Mexico or the Bahamas or something like that, and you stay at a resort, that experience is what you want to replicate here back in the United States as a service-based industry. When you go to Cabo and you stay at a resort, it feels like you are, the Queen of England. They literally will meet you, and they're so grateful for the opportunity to work with you, and they'll bring you, gifts, and they'll arrange your dinners, and they just make living so easy. They make that vacation so much easier. However which way they can curate the experience to be easy for you. What happens is, as a result of that, they have secured your business for the rest of the time you would go to Cabo. Unless you want a different experience or whatever, but generally it's a pretty good, that's the experience that I want to replicate. And when you do that, there are so many people that, walk into this newly remodeled house for whatever Christmas party and are like, whoa, who did this? And oh my God, he was amazing. You need to call him. And then it just snowballs from there. So for young entrepreneurs, I would definitely say the margin's important, but not at the expense of the relationship. The money will come, but don't let your learning lessons be the homeowner's responsibility. Own up to it. Be a man about it.
Eat it.
Do what's
Sometimes
right.
you just gotta eat it.
Just eat it. Just eat it. And then on the next time around, learn from your mistake and say, this is something I should probably look out for next time. And over time, you'll make that money back.
Well, for you said you had relocated and then you were in Austin. How long have you been in the DFW area now?
Since 2019. So I moved to Dallas, on the east side of Dallas, for a couple years, and now I've kind of migrated west, as I think most normal, sane people do. The longer they're in Dallas, the more they're like, Fort Worth is the spot. I guess the Fort Worth side of the Metroplex, it's just a lot more family oriented. People seem a little bit more genuine over here. It's crazy over there. It's incredibly fast paced. So
for people that aren't from here, it's interesting. So my wife, I'm not from Texas. I'm from Alabama originally, but my wife's from here and grew up in the mid cities area. So right now we're in Grapevine, in the middle of the Metroplex. DFW Airport's here. She grew up in Euless, went to UNT, and she's a person that if we have to go to Dallas, I have to really twist her arm.
Right.
She wants to go. She's happy to go to Fort Worth, but to go to Dallas, I don't understand. I know that these are 200 cities that have all grown together in the Metroplex, which over time in the last 20 years, they've literally all grown together. So it's a giant Metroplex of different little towns, different personalities, different characteristics, and everyone has their own identity. And so, but it's tough because it's Dallas,
Right.
and then it's not Dallas. It's such a small portion of this Metroplex is actually the Dallas and the Dallas, personality,
100%.
So to me, it's been an interesting being here, how it's almost like a rivalry between the different cities, and it used to be kind of Denton, but now it's more like Frisco and Plano, so it's pretty wild.
And the challenge about that is, the city is so big that all the bad contractors can just fly off into the wind and go be successful in another one of those 200 cities. So is there any real recourse for these illegitimate contractors that really should not be in this market and are ruining it for the rest of us? No.
Well, here, let's go for something. So someone as a homeowner, so let's say they had a water pipe blowout. This is a common thing. Do y'all do water restoration stuff at all, or reno from that, or this is more planned?
So if you called me and said, hey, do you do water restoration? My answer would be no. I have I'm not the perfect outfit. I would be incredibly cost inefficient to do something like that because I'm just more outfitted to do kind of your full top to bottom remodels.
So let's stay in that world then,
Sure.
the world that you're playing in. So they have a home. It's typically going to be dated. Maybe they're just like, hey, it's time to refresh. What are let's go for a couple things. What's the biggest bang for your buck? So if you do want to go in and renovate in a home to increase equity and value, let's go that route. Like what are the two biggest things that someone can do to actually add value to their home?
So I look at that question in two parts. One, I would consider it value in terms of monetary value, and then also the associative value of just living in that home before you sell it. So like after you spend say $150,000 on a kitchen remodel, is it going to feel like you've spent that $150,000 wisely? Because not everyone wants their home to feel like, for the duration of the time that they're living in it, a good return on investment. That's not at the forefront of their minds. Maybe from, and I'm just going to be really stereotypical here. That's how my mind works as a man, like as the moneymaker of the family. My wife stays at home with our children, but she does not care about that. She wants the house to work for her. She wants it to be aesthetically pleasing. So when she brings her friends over, there's something to talk about, or, it's easy to clean and take care of, and it's efficient. And so the kid, like putting the kids' toys and stuff away, it feels like the house is not, you're kind of working up against the house because you've only got one shelf in the closet and there's no place to put things. So I look at that question in two parts. From a investment perspective, it would definitely have to be your kitchen and your master bathroom. Those are the two bigs. The obvious answer is that. And I think, it's primarily because the people that are buying the home are not the children or the dogs. It's the mom and the dad. It's the people that are actually forking out the cash to buy the house. And so if you walk in and the kitchen's very, very tastefully done, and the price of the home is, say, $60,000, more than comps in the neighborhood, but the kitchen is like a serious pro, and it feels like it's more than a $60,000 pro, then it's an obvious choice of like, well, this is a great investment. We're going to buy this house. I wouldn't do I wouldn't necessarily do, sometimes even a pool. Like a pool in Texas, especially with the bedrock, can feel like you're kind of like that's working against you, because with some buyers, that's a very cultural buyer. Not everyone wants a pool because they've got young children, or now in Dallas where it's a big old melting pot of different kind of cultures, a pool may not be a desirable thing for a homeowner. So they're not going to pay the $150,000 in premium for the pool that your family would when you're looking for your next house. So I would definitely say, everyone uses their kitchen, everyone uses their master bathroom. That would be the two probably cost drivers for me. In terms of experience, my biggest selling point when I walk into these dated homes is it's actually incredible how little you have to do to provide that, that experience that everyone's looking for come the final reveal. Like, for example, oftentimes, if I'm working with someone that is cost conscious and doesn't want to just like rip everything out, some of the things that I would suggest is keeping the cabinets, because in a lot of houses, especially in this area, they're still custom cabinets. They're not builder grade, done in a shop in China, and just kind of,
Can you resurface the doors?
Oh yeah.
Or
there's so much we can do to like an existing set of cabinets.
Or just change the fronts,
yes,
and you still keep all the
100%.
Like the original structure you can keep.
Yes. And there's a lot of things that you can do, like, refinishing the wood floor, without having to totally rip everything out and drop the cabinets and the baseboards and all that kind of stuff too. So working with a good contractor that has kind of done like every little possible variant of what a remodel looks like, bringing someone like that in who can ultimately help you, like, I call it value engineer. It's value engineering, where you're like, I want this house to feel like I've put $1 million in, but I'm not going to put $1 million in. So how do I get a professional come in here and do that without spending an arm and a leg? I don't want to shop at, the Ferrari of countertop showrooms. I want to shop at a place where it feels like I've got a Ferrari countertop, but it's like a BMW or Mercedes dealership, right? So oftentimes, like when I'm meeting people for the first time, that's the analogy I'll use. It's like, what kind of buyer are you? Are you looking for the Ferrari, or are you looking for the Ferrari experience on a budget, or are you very practical? This is not your final destination. We want the BMW because the BMW's got a good name. It brings recognition. It's what people are desiring when they look for a house in this price point. That's what we're looking for. So, it's adapting my business model to kind of to be approachable for any kind of buyer, So I would definitely say, the value engineer, so that she feels good after, this remodel is done and she feels like she's just extended her lifespan in this house for 10 years. And when you walk into this kitchen, it's like, oh, it feels good to be in here again. It didn't before we've done this. That's the dollar value translated for like my wife in that analogy. She doesn't really.
No, it's way cheaper than
100%.
having to move into a new home or get a divorce. So I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
Guys, it's worth it.
Yes. Yes. It's only worth it if you can find a guy that's not going to break the bank, who kind of understands like the oftentimes as a general contractor, you're not just a general contractor. That's like a blanket term. Sometimes you're a family therapist. Sometimes you're like a house cleaner. Sometimes you're a dog sitter. Sometimes you're like the guy that gets the mail. And I mean, that's like my job, because when I'm working in someone's home, there's like a blend of personal responsibilities that these people have in their home and me as the professional. So there's a tug of war a lot of times between the man who's got his priorities here in this box and a woman who has her priorities in this box. And so how do you get those two dynamics that are very unique and also incredibly strong in their ways of thinking to like end the product with both of them feeling like this was worth it? I mean, I've got, to kind of create another analogy, I've got a 3.5-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl, and it feels like the skills that I've acquired being a parent to these toddlers is kind of the applicable skills that I use for that dynamic between like, the woman and the man, or the person who's got his eyes set on the budget and the person who doesn't, because it really is like about babysitting and sitting down with them and understanding, letting them communicate to me and feeling like they're getting through to me. And then I'll go to this person and do the same thing. And then it's like, okay, I'll get back with the designer. Here's what we're proposing. This makes this happy. I know for a fact, because we're picking a beautiful range or custom cabinets or whatever, but we're also getting the aesthetic look that this person is desiring without breaking the bank. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is a huge pro. That's one of my biggest selling points, is like leading, right? Not just like listening and then doing what they tell me to do. Like, I want a full custom kitchen and it needs to include all of this stuff. It's taking little bits and pieces of like the social dynamic in the home, how the man is wired, how the woman is wired, and then like blending that into one comprehensive experience for these people so that it feels like everyone's won at the end of the deal, at the end of the
And
day.
ultimately, we all want our customers happy.
Yes.
I mean, and that's awesome you do that. So, so for other people, maybe the entrepreneurs out there, you've been able to break into a market that's not easy to break into.
Yes.
Do you feel, other than just being a handsome, likable guy, what do you feel like was able to help you kind of segue into that? Did you get one person, then all of a sudden you would just be able to go through relationships and referrals, or have you been able to target directly, like building relationships in this sector?
My whole mantra, especially when I talk to my peers or friends or people that are younger than me that I work alongside, my whole mantra is sign up for too much and figure it out. Like, if you're going to fail forward. Don't fail backwards and get to a point where you have to restart. learn something from your failure and fail forward, get up and do it all over again. That is like, that's business ownership 101. That's just being a human
in general.
Yeah.
I think that's such a tough word. People think about failure, or we're afraid of making mistakes, but all it is a learning opportunity. That's the way I try to.
100%.
And that's something I have. I also have small children. They're in pre-K and kindergarten, and I try really hard also not to be too hard on them. I'm stern on them, but I want them to also understand that life is making mistakes, not to get so caught up in not wanting to make a mistake.
Right.
Like, that's one thing. We have a 15-year-old. He's in soccer, and the coach is really hard on him. And I could see when that gap, especially like that 13 to 15, so many of the players, you could see they were afraid of making mistakes. They were playing it too safe.
Right.
And now they're starting to be able to break through that, but it's depending on how you regulate that. You know what I mean? Like, his coaching almost was disabling the team at sometimes. But in general, if you can have a mindset of just, hey, you calling it failing forward, or just like, it's just a learning opportunity.
Expose yourself to risk.
At the end of the world is typically not going to be the end of the world.
Right.
Most things are going to pass.
Well, and here's the thing. When it becomes the end of the world, you learn a lot about your character.
Yeah, how tough can you handle it?
There's a lot of things that I have learned from myself when I've been up against the wall. I've over leveraged myself. I've signed up for too much. I don't have the time in the day. I'm trying to make everyone happy. I can't do it. I'm in Dallas. I forgot a meeting in Wiley, and I don't have the time to get there, and I've got to confront that mistake. Like, there's a lot that I've learned about myself in those incredibly stressful, I can't do this, there's no way I'll survive. Like, there is a way you will survive, but you just don't know it until you get into that fight or flight mechanism. And I tell you, that's probably one of the few reasons why I'm still in business today. I mean, it's been a challenge. There's obviously, I'm not unique in that. Every business owner goes through a challenge when the market takes it tanks, and you've got money out there and you've got debt due or whatever. Like, what are you going to do? This is where you are defined as a person. This is where your legacy either exponentially grows or like ceases to exist. What are you going to choose? It's that simple. Are you going to give up and say, this is not for me, I can't do this? Or are your eyes set on where you are and why you started this business, and it doesn't matter what happens, that's where you're going to get.
Having a strong enough why and where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's more important, I think, than just about anything.
And to answer your question specifically, is in terms of like, how did I get to this higher end demographic? It was a lot of, trial by fire. I came from, my first business was building spec homes, and I was doing, $300,000 to $400,000 price points. Like, that was it. 3-car garage, little tiny infill lots out in the middle of nowhere. Learn how to build a house and make sure it didn't fall down. Learn how to, like, what a warranty list looked like and build a procedure for that, and that was kind of it.
And these you were doing for yourself?
Yes.
This wasn't with a big builder?
No, this was totally by myself. It was, kind of in partnership with my dad. More about like how to, like, the chronological order of how to do things. But I built the floor plan. I met realtors, asked them what they needed, like found the lots, bought the lots, that kind of thing. I went to work for corporate builders. So my girlfriend at the time, was at Baylor when I was building in Austin, and she got into her master's program up here in Dallas, and it was an incredible opportunity, top 3 in the country for her program. And so there's like no doubt, like, you have to go here. But my commute doubled. And so I'm like, oh wow, this sucks. So it kind of became like, well, I guess I could pivot. And so I sold the business down there and started working corporate up here with the idea of, how do I scale my future business? Because I'll start that one back up again to 100 or 400 homes. So I'll go to work for some of these corporate guys. So I went to work with D.R. Horton. I built over 100 homes in 1 year. It was the worst experience of my life.
You did 100. You were personally in charge of 100
Personally in charge of 100 homes. I went from 6 homes to
100.
To 100.
Yeah, that's trial by fire.
Oh, yeah. And it was the worst experience of my life. But again, like...
But it made you grow.
100%. There is so much that I attribute, like, there's so much of my character and honestly my skill that I attribute to, like, I cannot fail. I am no longer, like, I have not lived in my parents' house at that time for 4 years. Like, I am totally autonomous from anyone, I cannot fail at this because I didn't have the resume at that time to be doing what I was doing. So it's not like if I got fired from Horton, I'd be able to go work for anyone, literally anyone else, no one else. Like he literally took a chance on me. It was such a God thing. That's an interesting story. It was such a God thing because my wife got into her master's program. I did not have a resume that looked good for a corporate builder. I built 6 of my own homes like per year. And even that was like so short-lived because, I mean, for her, like I met her, you know, I mean, we knew each other well before college, but we actually started dating when she was a sophomore. So I like had 2.5 years of running this business before I moved up to Dallas. It's not like I was a seasoned builder that could like adapt to certain circumstances. So when I worked for Horton, I got the job because he scheduled the interview for a holiday. Like I drove from Austin to Dallas on Memorial Day because that was the day that he scheduled to interview me. And so I showed up and no one was there. Like corporate was closed. So I had to drive all the way back down to Austin, and he called me the next day and was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe I did that. I've never done that in my entire life. I'd like to extend you the offer." And I haven't even met him. I didn't even know him. So like, you know, God, question mark, like there's so much of that where you're like, you know, again, you have to put yourself out there because if you fail, there are so many things that you will learn about yourself and also the hand that God has in your business that your whole perspective changes on what success looks like and also how to get there. Like you don't have everyone that's around me, all the builders, like my peers, the guys that are doing 10, 15, 20 million a year are so, I mean, they've been burned alive by this industry, but there's some of the happiest, most grateful people I know because it's like, I mean, who am I? Why would I be the one person that's not failed 100 million times to get to where I'm at, you know? So anyways, that was a very unique situation. And so I absorbed 100 or so houses immediately and I failed the entire time. I had my boss, he was out to get me from day one because I think, he hired me to kind of save face a little bit and knew that I was like fundamentally.
He threw you into projects that were already set up for failure.
Oh, yeah. I had 44 houses that were, on day 180 in framing stage, and Horton's desired build time was 65 days at that time.
Yeah, they're quick. I mean, they're 60, 80 days.
Yeah, so they were literally 65-day build times. I absorbed houses that were at 180 days, and they were all sold, and every single homeowner was angry. So it was obvious that, like...
You were in there trying to put up fires, and
I
was
didn't
trying
even
to have
know
a scapegoat, maybe.
Yeah, and I didn't even know how to spot the fires yet. I didn't, it's like... You didn't order this? Well, they're 3 weeks out. Well, I didn't. I don't know that. I built these houses. I built one plan, 6 times in 1 year and in 120 days. I didn't know that I needed to order that. No one's taught me that. I didn't know that. So, but that doesn't matter. It's like the result.
The job's got to get done.
Yeah, the result is what matters in that side of the industry. And so, anyways, I've learned a lot about, myself in that situation. I've had some other corporate, situations that have come up where I've learned a lot about other aspects of the industry. I've done some semi-custom stuff for some people where the homeowner takes the brunt of the, lack of organization, terrible communication, salesperson oversells something, and that's the reason why the homeowner buys it, and then the building wing of the company is like, we've never done, what are you selling? We've never done that in our life. And then the homeowner is like, there's no comp there. They have to still buy the house. And so I've learned a lot of what not to do. That's been my entire thing. So as I've started this business, it's been, man, I'm so grateful I do not look like anyone else. I don't want to look like anyone else.
So for you, how would you say, like, what's your ideal client and your services that you guys really shine in?
You know, I'm still in the phase where I'm growing my business, so beggars can't be choosers. I would love to work with anyone that, that has found themselves distrusting of the industry. I am wired where I really like the idea of building trust in a situation where it might feel impossible for people. I like to restore faith. That's like my biggest thing. I want to walk into people, remind them that there's a human on this side of the equation too, remind them that I recognize them as human too, not just a transaction. And so the ideal candidate can come in all shapes or sizes. I think if I were to answer you in like a secular way, what my business does really good at, it's, top to bottom remodels or new construction. My whole background's in new construction. I just kind of have an art for remodeling. I can take a problem with an existing structure and kind of uniquely fix it to where it's like, how do you get that load-bearing wall to not look like it's load-bearing, or defer the load so that we can open up this wall or things like that. I'm very good at that. Goes back to my engineer's mind. Like, I've always been interested in how things work. So I can walk into kind of any house and know almost how it's framed, just because I've got a pretty good understanding of what, common practice is in terms of framers, and even like what common practice looked like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because those are the houses that I'm working in right now, and they're not the same. So anyone that, wants an incredible refresh, that needs an artist more than like a general contractor, I'm very good at running a schedule. I'm very efficient with the monetary aspect of the deal, but also I'm a visionary. I like the idea of working with someone that wants to express themselves with their home. That's where I can really start to digest who you are as a person and let that speak in more ways than even their understanding. They don't even know exactly what kind of products or materials are out there. But if I could expose them to certain tile selections or way lighting works, and hey, if you're an entertainer, these are the things we need to focus on. Lighting's a big thing. Sound's a big thing. Automation is a big thing. Like, how do we get the house to kind of speak to you so that as you live in this house, it continues to kind of breathe your name, whatever your name is. Like, the house is an iteration of your success, but also your personhood.
It's a home you're actually living in.
100%.
This isn't a showroom.
Yes.
This is a house you're living in.
Yes.
And you can really
And it's done the way that you, like, if you were a kid again, like, how would you draw your water slide from your second story window down into the pool? Like that, right? Because everyone wants to be unique, but not everyone understands how to do that tastefully, So like my dad used to give us a piece of paper and be like, hey, we're building a new house. What's your ideal house? Like, what is your ideal room? And we would go crazy. Like, there was no metric. Like, he would just tell us, go crazy. And if we wanted like a tree in our room, it was like, okay, we'll figure out how to do that. And I didn't ever get that, but it was like the imagination that,
not just staying pigeonholed.
Yeah,
and being able to really
right. And
expand
so
the vision.
you kind of use that with my clients who's 30, 40, 50 years old. Like, how is your 10, 11, 12 self speaking to you? Because now that you're successful, now that you have the money to live the way you want to, how can we embrace that together? So that would be like my ideal candidate, is someone who wants a visionary, who understands like, hey, we're going to break the fourth dimension here a little bit. And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to break the bank. I know it can feel like that, especially as I'm talking, like just hearing myself now sounds like, oh my God, this guy's expensive. But in a lot of ways, it's really not. It's very, very fun to get creative on the monetary side, but also the vision with the project too,
Very cool. Hey, man, this has been awesome. So, thanks again for sharing your story. We've got to get back here. We're actually updating some headshots, so he's got a new haircut. You can see from the first time we worked together.
2 kids right here. We'll do that to you.
I've got 3 and 45 now.
There
I'm
you
feeling it, awesome, Hunter. Thank you very much for sharing everything.
Thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and then we'll make sure we'll put some tags. How, like, for people to communicate with you, is phone call, email. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? And
So I'm young, so I'm on my phone like all the time. We have a rule in our house, obviously with our children. We're trying to be anti-screen. And so I'll put the phone down when we get home. But text, phone call, email. I mean, I'm on it all the time. It's very important to me that I get back to any prospects. So any way you find me, Instagram DMs, of course, would be a good one too. I'm young, so there is probably not. All the methods are open in communicating with me online.
perfect, awesome, man. Hey, thanks very much.
Yep, thank you.
Let's get here. Let's go shoot.
Good deal. Sweet. I like that.